Good evening, everyone. It is the Spiel Sports Talk Show, the best sports talk show on Twitch. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone's doing well and eating well tonight. It's your boy Sal. It's a Muslim coming live from Pittsburgh. It is November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving. I hope everyone is excited for the tail end of this NFL season. We're going to talk about these Thanksgiving games. We're going to talk about those Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Tonight, I got Quay with me, all the way over from Arizona. How you doing, bro?
Oh man, doing pretty good. Had a little decent Thanksgiving. Didn't do too much. Kind of hung out. Watched the Running Man, the new one. I'm actually gonna be checking that out tomorrow. But I watched the classic with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just kind of get ready, see the differences, or if it's gonna be a requel, sequel. Reboot, whatever they want to call it. I make sure I go in there fresh and ready to go, just like we always are for the show. And it's always good to tune in and give the people what they want. And I always have a good time, and I hope else has a good time as well, especially tonight for our Thanksgiving special.
Yeah, what'd you eat for Thanksgiving? Did you have a traditional Thanksgiving dinner, or did you? I know some folks, they don't like turkey, so they'll substitute it with chicken. Or I know some folks eat ham, which I think traditionally is a Christmas dish, but
It's more Christmas, yeah. Yeah, more traditional. I would say just culturally, not my traditional, but more the traditional. I think most people would think when they think Thanksgiving. So there were certain things that were missing that I was upset about, but I totally understand. I was just thankful to, eat dinner, spend my time with people that I know and, can build relationships even more with. So had a good time, watched some football and all that stuff too. So can't complain too much. Christmas time, my mom's hooking me up anyway with everything that I missed out on. So I don't got too long to wait.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The day after Thanksgiving, those Christmas commercials are going in super hard. I mean, for us, we had
Super
Thanksgiving
hard.
dinner on Sunday, just because my parents are going out to visit a family out in San Francisco. So we had everything all set up. We
Missed
didn't
in a
get a
row.
big
Nice.
turkey, but we got it was like thighs. So it was perfect
Oh
actually.
yeah.
So that way we didn't have to
Nice.
do the whole turkey because that takes a long time to cook. So, and then, to get it succulent, as Jameis Winston would say. Um, it was,
Gotta love the man, James.
yeah, I mean, it's been great. But yeah, let's talk about these Turkey Day games. There was a Turkey Day triple header, which started at 1. Yeah, I wonder what happened to the 12:30 start games, but um, we had a 1 o'clock game, and it was a pretty close one. I think the Packers had a decent lead throughout the game and seemed like they were the better team, but the Lions kept themselves in it all the way throughout. Jordan Love was surgical. He had 4 touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, that ties Brett Favre for the most touchdowns by a Packer on Thanksgiving, which is pretty insane considering Aaron Rodgers was there for over a decade. Um, and the Lions, who was a Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the season, and last week they had a insane rushing output from Jameer Gibbs. JMO had a great game today as well, but it just wasn't enough to beat the Packers, who didn't make the mistakes that the Lions did today. What was your thoughts on the Packers going there to Detroit and ruining Thanksgiving.
You know, it's well. First off, we're gonna say shout out to those. Shout out and congratulations to the Packers for winning. 31-24 division game, Thanksgiving game. This was important for both teams. One to come out with the win just for standings, momentum, and it was a good win. I think we see the things that people talk about when they mention the Packers, in terms of Jordan Love being the quarterback that can potentially be a top five quarterback in the league, and it it showed today. You know, I'm not putting him in there or anything. I don't want anyone to think I'm jumping the gun there, but we've seen it today. The guy was just precision everywhere, just dicing up that Detroit defense, a defense that we all thought would bounce back, have the same injuries that they did last year that kind of ravaged them, and they were able to string wins along. So, which I'm going to get to in a second. But Jordan Love was the reason this team won. Josh Jacobs kept things kind of steady and balanced. He didn't have like the greatest game or anything like that, but kept things steady and balanced. And it's something that you really want as well once these November and December games come around, to have a steady bell cow to kind of wear out a defense as well. So, he was also a helping hand. But again, shout out to Jordan Love. If he can play like this, the Packers can again be the team that I had called. And at first I was kind of like, man, was that a bad call? I mean, did I misread what I've been seeing? And then like the Micah trade. But if he keeps this up, the Packers have a legitimate shot at becoming a Super Bowl contender and Super Bowl team out of the NFC. Their defense is opportunistic. Again, Jordan Love played amazing today. So this team can definitely make some noise. Going to the Lions, however, it's very strange. As I just mentioned, last year, ravaged on defense by injuries. And you kind of wonder, like, okay, well, next season, because we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, couldn't stop anything. You were literally on third stringers, getting guys out practice squad, just kind of picking up dudes off the street. And it was totally understandable if you were going to lose to a hot, young, you know, Commanders team last year, which they were total surprise as well. But this year, they might not have the same exact players on defense, but they have almost the exact same players. There's not a lot of changes on defense. And the offense as well hasn't really changed outside of Ben Johnson not being the offensive coordinator. And I don't really think that has hurt the team offensively that much. They've had maybe a few off games in terms of their offense, but for the most part, their offense has been able to put up points, put up yards. We've seen that last week. Even today, they were able to do things early on in the year. Week one, I mean, the tremendous rout against the Bears earlier in the season. It's weird why this team can't seem to get victories, especially as of late. They could have lost to the Giants. Jameis and the trick plays, they were pulling out was just, I don't know, that Jameis energy is electrifying. So maybe that's just what it was for the Giants. But still, it's pretty alarming. I think most teams, and even when I picked the Packers, I was kind of like, oh, well, forgetting about Lions. There was just something about the Packers team that I was feeling, especially once the Micah trade had happened. But the Lions had every stake in this, in terms of being a Super Bowl contender. I think a lot of people would have chose them, before the season started. Oh yeah, it's their year. This been a few years where we thought it was their year, and even this year, it makes sense why we thought that. So, um, I think it's more alarming that they lost this game. I think even if the Packers lost, you could make an argument that they would still be fine as the season went along because that's just Detroit fighting back to win this game. To steer the ship back on course. But it's I'm a little worried for them that at least this season isn't necessarily the hardest schedule. I would say it's more mid tier. They're totally games that they can win and close out the season on a hot run. I just think they have a long week to get things together. From to Sunday, next Sunday, not this Sunday. And so I expect Dan Campbell to fix things, and I still expect this team to be a team that makes it to the playoffs. But they do need to correct something. I would say it's mainly on defense, but they've also been having certain inconsistencies on offense, whether that's getting Jamison Williams the ball consistently. They did lose Amon Ra in game two, so that can also change things for them in the passing game. They don't have Laporta. There are certain injuries on their offense that have been building up a little bit, but it's just there's just some weird bad luck. I think 2 years ago was their time to win, and Dan Campbell was too aggressive on fourth down. I think these past 2 years have just been some bad luck, and it sucks because luck is part of the game too. And if it doesn't go your way, positive is what happens. So I believe they'll be able to turn around and still make it as a playoff team, but it just seems like a lot of holes and cracks are showing in this team, and probably falter to bad luck and certain things that were out of their control in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a team that is still dangerous. I think, uh, like you said, despite them losing, they had offense. I mean, Gibbs didn't have as productive as a day as he did last week, but Jared Goff seemed like he was sharp, even though they were down. He got them back in it, but I think he was on his back most of the game, and he didn't have that much time. And it seemed like Jordan Love had like a clean pocket on every play. Um, Christian Watson had a touchdown. Romeo Dobbs had a touchdown. He's passing it to everyone too. It's not just one single player.
Mhm.
And they lost Tucker Kraft earlier in the season, and that seems to maybe that's why they had a down stretch, but now they figure things out again. And how you play football after Thanksgiving is how you're going to define yourself going into the playoffs. So right now they're on a great, uh, sweeping Detroit and handing the Lions their third loss in 5 games. Let's talk about that Cowboys game. And they upset the Kansas City Chiefs with a 31-28 game. Um, this one similar to the last game, going back and forth, back and forth. Chiefs had the lead, then it changed back to the Cowboys, then back to the Chiefs. I think they had like a 21-20 lead. Um, all sorts of players stepped up. CD Lamb had a great game. Pickens had some moments in the game. And we saw why that Dallas team is so dangerous when you have two number one receivers. The Chiefs look great too. I mean, Rashee Rice had 2 touchdowns. Mahomes using his legs to get those first downs on key conversions. Kelsey with a touchdown. So even though they did lose, I mean, they did look like a formidable opponent. It wasn't like they got manhandled by the Dallas Cowboys. It felt like anyone could have won that game. Uh, if a fumble goes one way or another, that could have really changed the complexion of the game here. Uh, this could have been arguably game of the year, one of the best games of the year, probably. High powered offenses on both sides, and the Chiefs now fall below 500 for the first time in Mahomes' era. I don't think they've ever been below 500 in late November. What do you think here about the Cowboys? Are they legitimate? Or are they going to come up short like they normally do? And how do the Chiefs fare in terms of getting to the playoffs in the AFC with such a kind of a big hole now to dig out of?
Um, I do think this Cowboys team, as I was watching the game, this was actually the game I got to see the most of, pretty much from start to finish. Um, and the thing that stood out to me the most with this Cowboys team that I think makes them a little more legit, analysts have also been kind of talking about it. Ever since the trade for Quinnen and also bringing in Logan Wilson, which we even talked about a little bit, would that, potentially make some changes? Would that actually make a difference for this team? And it has. Logan Wilson gives them an extra bit of depth and experience at, the linebacker position, but they had someone on the team that just got back from injury, and that is Overshown, number 0. He is one of those modern day prototypical linebackers that is rangy, can cover, and he can hit too. He is a three level type run, 3 level type linebacker, and it's amazing. And like watching him out there, he was making plays, just going from sideline to sideline. And I think he's been making things better for them on defense. But the biggest acquisition from the trade deadline, Quentin Williams helping out, especially and helping out with Kenny Clark, who was a trade through the Micah Parsons deal early on in the season with the Packers, has also helped with them becoming more stout in the run game. Also, getting pressure in the interior of the line. So it's definitely something I think has helped them a lot that will provide sustainability. Why I believe they are legit, as you mentioned as well. 2 number 1 receivers. I think we've known this since Pickens was in Pittsburgh, and it was just about could the Steelers utilize him the right way and get him the ball? And we've seen the frustration throughout, and it was like, okay, maybe this guy's just a bit of a diva head case, which I think most receivers are divas to a certain extent, not to the levels of maybe like a Chad Johnson was, Theo was back then. But I just think a lot of guys are passionate, and I think that's where a lot of his acting out came from. Not necessarily excusing it when he was at Pittsburgh, but we see truly when he is featured in an offense how great he really is. I mean, the dude catches everything. He's athletic. I mean, it's like he's in flow state every single time he is out there. I mean, it's effortless for him. So I'm happy for him. He's going to get his money. I think he wants to probably end up staying in Dallas, especially if they can just fill out some of the team going forward next season. They'll really be able to make some more noise. But as of right now, I think this is a team you have to, keep your eye on and see. It's not like a joke anymore. I really do think this Cowboys team is legit. But with the Chiefs, it's going to be tough. AFC is it's not a gimme. I think they next week they have to go against the Texans, and the Texans are getting healthy. Their offense is getting better. You got rookies like Higgins making plays week in, week out. I think he's had 4 touchdowns over the past like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. So he's developing. Christian Kirk has came back and he's healthy. Nico Collins is out there, and they figured out this running game with splitting it almost evenly, but leaning more towards Woody Marks and Nick Chubb, and they're not a team that you want to place. And I think the scariest thing about that Houston team is the defense. We all know that this is probably the best defense, not not named the Broncos in the league. Um, they could potentially even be better than the Broncos, but those are the 2 definitive best defenses in the NFL right now. And with the way the Chiefs You know, they have to put up points to win. The Texans are really good at limiting teams with points. They don't score easily, and if CJ Stroud comes back, just it makes it all the more challenging for this Chiefs team to even get a win here. They really needed to get this win tonight against the Cowboys, just as much as the Cowboys needed to win here. But I think it was, again, more important for the losing team to have gotten the win versus the team that ended up winning. Whether the Cowboys go to the playoffs or make a deep playoff run doesn't really matter. I think, Jerry would tell you Super Bowl is the destination, but I don't believe, that is a realistic goal, even with how they're surging right now. We need to kind of see how things develop more. Once again, like I mentioned with their defense, and again, if they can play consistently like this. But this Chiefs team, they really needed this win. They want to get back to the Super Bowl, and it's been a rough year as we've been seeing all year. As we mentioned with this next team, it just seems like the typical cream of the crop. They're struggling. Where it's it's very different this year. We're seeing a lot of different parity, a lot of different teams here, or so much parity in a lot of different teams here. So um, I'm worried about the Chiefs, but it could be good for the league that Chiefs don't make it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then the Chiefs, yeah, if they don't make the playoffs, I guess they'll be in position to get a better draft pick and maybe figure out how to bolster some of their deficiencies. But let's move
Offensive
on.
line,
Yeah, line, and I think Kelsey's getting old too, so they're probably looking for that next star to fill that spot. Um,
definitely.
But let's talk about probably it seems like the upset of the season here, especially with the
Yeah.
margin of victory, and that's the Bengals beating the Baltimore Ravens 32-14. The score makes it seem like they were completely routed, but early on in this game, I mean, it's a very close game. The Bengals couldn't get into the end zone on multiple red zone drives, only settling for a field goal from McPherson. But towards the end of the game, they just kept going at it and were able to convert some of those drives into touchdowns. Meanwhile, the Ravens, they fumbled the ball, threw picks. Lamar threw two of them. And during the game, the defense, they played pretty decent during the first half of the game. And there was a one sequence that I think about where Lamar has the fumble,
Hmm.
and then afterwards the defense gets the stop, and then on the next possession, I think they get -1 on a three yards on a 3-and-out. So the Ravens really had a chance here to continue on the path that they were on. They had kind of gone on this win streak with their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, losing last week. They were in position to control their destiny. And the Bengals played spoilers. Joe Burrow came back from his turf toe injury, and he was throwing dots out there. I mean, he looked great. And the defense that has kind of been the Achilles heel of this team stopped the Ravens from scoring. Derrick Henry had a huge run at the beginning of the game, but the game script and the way that the game was going, they weren't able to give him the ball as much. And I think when this team doesn't have the lead and can't lean on that run game, it becomes a team that is easy to beat. And I think that's something that the divisional games against these Ravens, that's why they always end up splitting. It seems like the AFC North teams know how to play them physically, and he was harassed all night. Lamar looks like he's probably hurt or dealing with something because he doesn't seem like to be himself. Some of those throws, I think, were uncharacteristic of him. But we don't know what's going on here. Now the door is wide open for the division. I mean, the Steelers, even the Browns, or even the Bengals to kind of hop in here. It seems like it's anyone's division now. What are your thoughts here about our divisional rivals, the Bengals and Ravens, on Thanksgiving night?
Well, I I don't think Burrow should have played. I know they are technically mathematically still in the playoff hunt, partly due just because of, well, actually primarily due to the fact they can still win the division. Kind of crazy to say that, but if they, win out the rest of the year, um, and the teams also, Ravens and the Steelers continue to kind of falter in different ways, Bengals could still technically make it. But I didn't think Joe Burrow should have played because I'm like, season's over. Why risk, injuring him even further? Joe Flacco's been playing great. He can still technically get you to the playoffs if that's what you're still hoping for. You think you have the greatest shot, but hey, Joe Burrow got healthy much sooner than they expected. They said middle of December was probably more like the start date, but here he is at the uh, end of November here versus the middle of December. So um, just kind of shows some of the toughness and his like recovery ability and rehabbing. So shout out to him getting healthy, persevering through all of that, and coming out tonight and just kind of putting on a show. Connection between him and Jamar Chase obviously was just kind of there instantly. Uh, they've been playing for years, so that's just kind of automatic for them. This Bengals team has been playing much, much harder. I mean, the defense has always been kind of their Achilles heel the past few seasons, just because they really loaded up, put the money and focus into their offense, which totally understand. You got two number ones with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You have two decent tight ends, honestly. You also have a really good all-purpose back with a Chase Brown. I get it; it makes total sense, but again, it makes things a little challenging at times when you need to stop. But tonight they were able to hold this Ravens team, and I know there's been some woes a little bit, but they are mostly healthy on offense, and still have the likes of like a Derrick Henry, a Zay Flowers, good tight ends like Bateman and Likely, or I'm sorry, good tight ends with Likely and Andrews, and then you got receivers that make plays like a Bateman and even DeAndre Hopkins, like they make big plays still. Um, and they just couldn't do anything against this Bengals defense tonight. Lamar did look very shaky. I'm not 100% sure. Again, to your point, maybe he is unhealthy. Maybe um, maybe they're having some schematic issues as well in terms of play calling to run. I'm not sure. It's kind of alarming to see, and it makes me question, especially after talking with a friend of mine back home who is a Ravens fan. He's kind of at the point where he feels as though Harbaugh, if he doesn't get them to the AFC Championship, he feels as though Harbaugh needs to go. Um, just kind of like it's it's a similar situation that people feel in Pittsburgh, where they feel as though Mike Tomlin had. It's been too long since we've even been relevant in the playoff. You know, we've been this team that's been mediocre or good at best. And similar to the Ravens, I think, there's been maybe one losing, maybe two losing seasons in Harbaugh's time since like 2016, 2015. I have to kind of look at that stat. But, um, he's kind of also been the steady ship, but at times there is like a play calling issue. I mentioned before the show when we were talking, why didn't Derrick Henry have, you know, 20 plus carries, 25 plus carries? If Lamar isn't 100% healthy, then feed the beast, and he only had 11 carries. That's kind of unacceptable. And the game was close early on, and if he's also a little banged up or you want to kind of keep him as fresh as possible, then on the ball with other backs. You got a Keaton Mitchell who, is healthy. He has great speed. After bludgeoning a defense with Derrick Henry, throw in Keaton Mitchell. He'll just gash that defense after they're so tired of tackling this behemoth of a running back for him. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this team. Early on, you could have made an argument that they just had the brunt of their schedule at the beginning of the year, and that's why they lost their games. Why they started out 1-5, which arguably is somewhat acceptable. But even then, you're debating why were they losing these games? There were games that they should have won. They should have won opening night against the Bills. They should have won against the Lions. They should have been able to win these games. And I don't know what's going on with them. Shout out to them for even coming back and getting a hold of the division. Right now, they just kind of lost it, depending on what the Steelers do this weekend. The Steelers can easily take it back if they are somehow able to beat the Bills. So, um, it I didn't think this division would go back and forth like this all year. Um, but we'll see. It's December, starting. It'll be December after this week, and that's when things are really, really going to be really, really matter. See what team really shows true grit and closes out the season strong. I don't think it'll be the Bengals, but they made a strong case tonight if they're able to string wins together because a team just won't be able to stop this high-powered offense.
Yeah, and speaking of true grit, shouts to Haley and her husband,
Really
Josh
stumped
Allen,
up.
coming to Steel City on Sunday, 4 o'clock game, playing a conference opponent in the Buffalo Bills. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a tall task in front of them. It's a team that they haven't beat in a couple of seasons now. I think the last time the Steelers beat the Bills was the game where TJ Watt had that strip sack. Um, I would like to say it was 4 years ago or 5 years ago at this point. But that's a completely different Bills team now. This is a Bills team that's a perennial playoff team. This is a Bills team that is beating Patrick Mahomes the majority of the time during the regular season. This is a Bills team, however, that was supposed to win the division. And now they're looking more like a wild card team with the seventh seed at the moment. The Steelers have a great opportunity here to correct ship and take the division back and control their destiny. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that has beat the best out of the best with the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots, who are up there on top of the AFC standings. But it's also a team that has lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, who were without Joe Burrow, who had Joe Flacco on short notice. Um, so, which Steelers team are we going to get here? Are we going to get the Steelers team that forced 6 turnovers against the Colts and are getting good sacks and getting good pressure from their outside linebackers and being able to make up for any deficiencies on the back end? Or is this going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers team that gets gashed up and down? Uh, Maybe the James Cooks of the world runs for like 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. I could see that happening. But the thing about the coach here, Mike Tomlin, seems like he has his storyline in the seasons are usually two different ways. It's either the team overperforms, does really, really well, and then in the month of December they fall off, Or the team does really, really bad at the beginning of the season, and the month of December, they step up and somehow either sneak their way into the playoffs or barely lose because of a field goal by another team during that final week of the season when they are unable to control their destiny here. So, Quay, what do you think? Which way is the Steelers going to go? Well, how about two questions? Which way is the Steelers going to go, or which way would you want the Steelers season to go here as a Steelers fan?
I'll answer the first question because the second one is more layered. First one is if it if the trend if the trend keeps up, the trend says that we're going to win this Sunday. Um, we're coming off a tough loss where I don't think the defense played that except in certain positions and certain moments, and
Key
then
moments.
certain key moments, and then like schematically we were doing weird. Wish I could pull up the play where seeing Herbig and TJ in like coverage, and it was just like, what are we doing here? Um, but what I personally would want is for us to lose the game. I know that is for certain fans, might sound very cathartic and very like, you know, I'm very much like down in the dumps here, but there's just a certain reality that we have to face here and actually ask ourselves: do we really believe that we're going to win a Super Bowl? If we can't wholeheartedly say that, I'm not saying give up on the year because I don't just think that's something anyone could really do. But the reality is that we're not probably going to win a Super Bowl. What's the point of getting to the playoffs like we always do just to lose during the wild card round and be back to where we were, which is at the beginning of every season, we're looking for a quarterback. That's what we've been doing since Ben has been gone. Looking for the next quarterback. Money into the defense. Maybe bring in some outside receiver. Uh, bolster the line. And that's just kind of it. Draft a very similar way where we get some receiver in like the second, third, maybe fifth round. We'll get like some linebacker, some safety, and it's just the same thing over and over. So for us, for what we need to, especially if we don't think Will Howard's the guy, even though I think if we get to a position where the season truly is over for us, I think we need to put him in for a couple games so we can actually then see who we have and even look into next year. Where do we believe some of these guys are even going to be worth it to draft? Based off of some of the rumors, a lot of these guys that could come out are probably going to stay another year. And so that it's like, well, what's the quarterback pool going to look like then next year? So at some point, we need to see what Will Howard is going to be for us. If this is truly Aaron Rodgers next year, we're going to repeat the same thing of trying to find some vet quarterback to get and keep us in this Super Bowl win now, which again has been holding us back because we can't fully prove the team in the way that we need to by getting younger. I'm not saying that these guys are too old to play. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we're going to like the oldest defense, which I don't think that's necessarily a problem as long as guys can play and perform. And we've seen a lot of guys who on our defense who are in their late 20s, early 30s, still performing. So I don't think that's been the problem. It has been an issue with the scheme, and it's been an issue with keeping the direction of this team fresh. And I it's very archaic. I think I said this on a show, or I think we were talking about this one day off the show, and I had said, I think the reason why we're weirdly able to beat teams is because we play a style that isn't the most practice against, because it's kind of like this archaic style of playing. So sometimes we'll look really good going up against certain teams because they're like, yo, how are they beating us right now? Because we'll do like some weird three tight end thing with some weird motion and all. We'll have like some lineup where you're just kind of like, wait, what is this? Not something we've always practiced against. And so I think that's what keeps us looking like we're this team that can beat teams. But Ben Johnson said it best. Um, uh, Bears head coach, he had said it best. He had literally said that to win a game, analytically speaking, most of the time it's coming from the team that has the better efficiency in the passing game. And that typically is talking about like your average yards per pass. And so it's like whether that is scheming up things to get rack or yak, run after catch, yards after catch, whatever you call it, or getting or making explosive plays. That is usually indicator of a win. And the Steelers have not been able to do that consistently, and most of the time, I think I heard a crazy stat um, for 60 quarters. I think that was the stat. The Steelers have only scored, or for 60 games, yeah, for 60 games, the Steelers um, have only scored 7 points um, or less during the first quarter, like the first quarter of a game, which means there's teams that have been able to easily get 10, easily get 13, 14, 17 in a quarter. And I'm not saying, every team's going to get 17 and a quarter, anything like that. But, if your defense is making plays, which again, we've had games where we've had our defense make 5 turnovers, 6 turnovers. We can even talk about the game where you just asked, are we going to get a version of the Steelers that did this to the Colts, or a version of the Steelers that lost like the Packers or whatever, and Chargers, whatever team we want to say. Even against the Colts, where we played dominant defense, we should have won that game by more than one score, but we
Yeah.
weren't able to do like crazy things on offense. So again, for me, I would like for us to lose this game just because I want us to finally have a losing season, for the fan base to find, like, especially ones that are like, man, no, this thing has been good. We get to the playoffs and anything can happen. No, we need to lose so we can finally get out of this whole, oh no, but we haven't had a losing season. That, like, it doesn't matter. Colin Coward even pointed it out. Some crazy stat. I'm gonna try to look it up, but it was ridiculous to hear. Where I was like, yeah, it's very pointless to quote unquote have a winning season when it doesn't amount to anything. So um, I think again we're going to get a Steelers team that's going to come out motivated, and the trend is going to say the trend is saying we're going to win, but I would prefer for us to lose for those reasons as just said.
Yeah, I mean, the defense last week scored a touchdown, and they were still unable to generate enough offense. To be fair, it was with Mason Rudolph, who threw a pick at the beginning of the game, who actually made a really good play at the end of the game, but it got called back for offensive holding. So it ended that comeback that the Steelers were trying to make. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is a team over the last 3 seasons has struggled whenever we give up a big lead to an explosive team, and that's what usually happens in the first round of playoffs, where Steelers are 7 seed, 6 seed, end up playing, the second or third seed. and that team has enough firepower to basically make the game over by halftime, and that's how it feels like. However, I think with this season, the path to the playoffs isn't going to be a wild card. I think they'll miss if they have to get a wild card spot. So now it's a divisional playoff berth, which will amount to a game at Acrisure if they can win the division. So I do think that this team could win a playoff game, whether or not that really matters in the grand scheme of things. I agree with you. I think that if the team had a really good pick, like a top 10 pick, or has enough leverage to even trade up to a top three pick, then things could change. During the draft last season, they decided not to pick a quarterback, and there were a bunch of different quarterbacks that were picked in front of Will Howard. So Will Howard's not the guy. Then it really makes you ask why he was drafted in the first place. He is a winner, won national championship, but seems like he is a good leader and is enthusiastic about the game, but it doesn't always translate into performance, especially at the pro level. And then we see individuals like Dylan Gabriel, who's gotten some time, and Shador, has gotten his first win in his first start with the Cleveland Browns. And again, I don't know if the product or what we saw was flashy, but if the point was to go get a quarterback and try to develop one, there was one for the taking. Steelers end up picking up Harmon, who, when he's healthy, seems like the player that we drafted in the first round. But there's been plenty of picks that they've gotten even with these 9-8, 8-9 seasons, or the 10-7 seasons, like the Peyton Wilsons of the world, who have really panned out too. So, but the thing is, are you going to be able to get that generational talent? It seems like in the NFL nowadays, you need a really, really good quarterback, really, really good head coach, and then the rest will kind of figure itself out. I think the issue with Tomlin is even if he has a really, really good quarterback, and I think the Aaron Rodgers of the world, the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world over the last decade have been decent quarterbacks, but it always seems like when the offense is rising, the defense doesn't play well, and the defense is playing well, the offense doesn't play well. So this is never consistent, right? It's like your fantasy team. You got a bunch of good players on your fantasy team, but they don't go off at the same time. That's what felt like with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I do think they're going to beat Buffalo on Sunday. I think it's going to be an upset. I think Acrisure is going to be excited to see their team win against a good team. But again, it makes you wonder, is this all worth it? Spending all of this money, getting the veteran quarterback, all to maybe make it to the playoffs? Or will it be worth it if they can host a game at Acrisure in January and potentially win one? The team has talent. I think the players that you need to win are on the team already. It's just I don't have the biggest faith in terms of the scheming, the schematics. Uh, Not saying that I don't like some of the things that Arthur Smith or Terrell Austin have done. There are definitely games that the offense have looked really, really good, or defenses look really, really good. But can they make the adjustments mid-game at halftime to keep themselves one step ahead of their opponent? To me, that has not been the case for the Steelers team. And it does make you question if you think about Tomlin and the Super Bowl runs, right? All of his offensive and defensive coordinators were Hall of Fame type of players or coaches. I mean, Bruce Arians takes the Bucks to the Super Bowl. Ken Wisenhunt takes the Cardinals to the Super Bowl. Dick LeBeau obviously is Dick LeBeau. Uh, so if Tomlin doesn't have that type of coordinator, how far is he going to get with the Randy Finkners of the world, the Arthur Smiths of the world, the Terrell Austins of the world, the Keith Butlers of the world? It seems like he needs to have someone who is a guru, who maybe is already well established. He can be the players coach that we need him to be, just like how Noel was, just like how Cower was. But they have to make sure that the ones calling the plays, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, are able to call the right plays to win the game. And I think that's always been the issue, right? It always seems like this team, it's not like this team has hit its ceiling and you're like, oh, that's who the team is. It always seems like the team isn't always firing on all cylinders. But maybe that changes this weekend with the Buffalo Bills. So that's that 4 o'clock slot there on Sunday. Yeah, well, I mean that's it in terms of what I wanted to talk about or spiel tonight. Thanksgiving episode. We understand everyone's on break. Shouts to Randy and Guru and Steve and all of our fans out there who always listen to us. But yeah, let's go ahead and end it with some spiels here. And Quay, you have anything that's on your mind?
Gonna do a quick little Thanksgiving spiel, just being thankful and grateful. I've talked about it before on the show, life was pretty tough for a bit, but I'm very thankful for my life, thankful for the blessings that I've had and, you know, people in my life that I've been blessed with, friends and family, things like that. I'm super grateful, super thankful for, even the guys that are on the show, Randy, Guru. It's been a minute since we linked up, Steve, and even guys who haven't really been on the show, like Gabe, Jack, who hasn't been on as much, my cousin, all you guys. Like, I really appreciate and love you guys and grateful for you guys. And yeah, but outside of that, this week, like I said, with football, talk about it on the show. Nitty gritty time, this the last game of November, last week of November, and then we got December football. So it's time to, tighten those chin straps even tighter. Make sure you got your pads, fully fitted on. This week we got some matchups that really matter, that will determine and kind of shake up a little bit more things in the NFC and AFC. So, I mean, with the win tonight and the loss for some of the teams, but the win tonight for the Cowboys really helps their case in the NFC. Then the we have got the Chiefs losing, so that really hurts their case. I mean, they're 2 games back from the Chargers, and they have an easy matchup against the Raiders, who have been kind of flailing. So um, it just makes the case tougher. Broncos, if you expect them to lose, like again, it's gonna be hard for the Chiefs. You expect them to lose. They got Washington, the Commanders, who don't have their starting quarterback, still don't have their starting wide receiver, a lot of injuries, defense, the greatest. But who knows? We can have some upsets going. What I like is big matchup. This is the big matchup I was looking for here.
Texans?
Texans and Colts. That is a really big matchup for lots of different reasons. Colts need to kind of make sure they don't go. They haven't had a 2-game losing streak all year, so they just probably want to avoid that. This Texans team, as I mentioned, tough defensive team, getting healthy, so they can easily shut down Jonathan Taylor and make Daniel Jones try to beat them. Which I think he's a good quarterback. From all we've seen on tape, he can win games for this team without having the best complementary football. So I'm not too worried about Daniel Jones performing if he needs to, but that is the matchup that we really have to look forward to over the weekend, because that's going to shake up a lot of things in the AFC. If the Texans were to win, that just helps them out. Jaguars need to lose. They go against the Titans. Titans did put up 24 points against the Seahawks last week. Just never know. If they somehow beat the Jaguars, which Trevor Lawrence hasn't been playing best football, A lot of their success has been coming from their opportunistic defense and their rushing attack, which has been really good this year. Um, we'll see what happens, but I do expect the Jaguars to win and still maintain a lead ahead of the Texans to maintain that wild card spot. But again, anything can happen, and the final NFC matchup where this has some implications as well. Eagles versus Bears. Bears are hot right now. They've been able to win close games just as much as the Eagles have been able to win games in no type of way too. So we got some good fun matchups this week that have some implications for the playoffs. And again, December football, so every game counts. But again, thankful for you guys as well that tune in. I know we're just a small podcast here. We're still trying to grow, but we appreciate you guys and we're grateful you guys have been here along for the journey. And from this small state that we're in now to eventually when we become more popular, no matter what, we're always grateful and appreciate you guys. So
Yeah,
can't say
definitely.
enough.
Thankful for the show. Thankful for the channel. Thank you for everyone who watches, whether live on Twitch or on YouTube or watches a clip on IG. It's been an honor to be your guest here or your host on the Spiel Sports Talk Show. Just definitely something that hopefully moving into next year we can be consistent. This is episode uh, 11, 12 now. This episode 12, so that's 12 weeks in a row that we've delivered. So we're really excited about continuing that going into the new year. My spiel tonight is going to be about the death of pay-per-view. If those of you who watched the football game on CBS, there was an announcement by Dana White during the halftime show talking about the first card that's going to happen next year, which is going to be on January 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And it's going to be for the interim lightweight title, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. This is going to be a massive fight. Pimblett moving up to fight one of the killers, Justin Gaethje, who's always exciting to watch, always throws every punch with reckless abandon. Fireworks, I think, are inevitable there for that main event. Co-main event is going to be two of the best women in the world. Amanda Nunes is coming out of
Should be fun.
retirement to fight Kayla Harrison. So that should be a lot of fun as well. And then Sean O'Malley is going to fight Song Yadong. So it's going to be a loaded first card. And then the second card that they previewed is going to be Volkanovski and Lopez in the rematch, where Lopez fought Volk, who ended up besting him and taking the belt back. So should be a lot of fun. No more pay-per-view fees. All the numbered events are included with the Paramount Plus subscription. So if you have that already, well, it looks like you have a lot of UFC coming your way. And for those UFC fans who didn't want to pay $70, $80 to watch one single fight, but are feeling more comfortable with a subscription-based service, seems like this is the best of both worlds. And obviously you get to watch all those sports on CBS, such as football, March Madness, and all those other things. So that's it for me. And that's the end of our show. It's your boy, Sal. It's a Muslim. With my guy here, Quay, Lotus Tao. It is November 28th, 2025. This was the episode after Thanksgiving. And I hope everyone has a good night here. And we will see you next time on the Spiel Sports Talk Show. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Stay grateful and have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Nice. Great show. Great.